Welcome to Forward Progress on the Hammer Betting Network. On this Tuesday, November 21st, we've got an action-packed show. We'll be discussing the Monday Night Football game, including did we see the best team in football play last night? We'll also buy and sell on current market price discrepancies in the futures market, plus a preview of all three Thanksgiving Thursday games. Just a reminder, Forward Progress every Monday to Friday, 2 o'clock. If you're not already, you should subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and smash the like button. It helps boost us in the algorithm, helps us to grow bigger and get in front of more eyeballs. Of course, none of this would be possible without our sponsor, Pinnacle. They're the world's sharpest sports book and available to bettors in Ontario. Find out what the pros have known for the last 25 years. Everyday competitive odds, your trusted sports book. Bet smart, bet Pinnacle. Must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly. With that being said, I'm your host, George Tsilfidis. I'm excited to get this show on the road. Tuesdays, I'm joined by SharpClarke, NFL originator, betting analyst at 4for4.com. Clark, how are you, my friend?
Good. I'm excited about this week, and felt like something we talked about off air beforehand is there were a lot of things that I think we've been seeing in the film that really kind of showed up in the games this past week, and it feels normalizing to see some results that were somewhat expected. So.
Yeah, I felt vindicated a little bit. Like finally, the stuff we've been talking about has come to fruition. Let's start off with the Monday Night Football game, though. It was a banger. It was a Super Bowl rematch. Maybe the preview to this year's Super Bowl. Who knows? But I want to start with the Kansas City Chiefs, Clark. Are you concerned about this group of wide receivers? This is now the second time in prime time that they've cost the Chiefs a game, the first time being Detroit. We keep saying this offense will get right, but Clark, we're week 11, and I don't see this receiver group having made massive improvements. What is your take on all that?
Yeah, I'm concerned if I'm the Chiefs. I think you asked me this after week 1, and I said I'm not concerned because they figured this out, over the course of the year. And I think I said if we're still having issues in week 12, I think then you start to have concern, and we're still having issues, and it's heading into week 12. There's no help coming. Their offense is not working. The receivers aren't getting open. Mahomes is having to make miracle throws, and the receivers aren't catching them. Granted, it was a rainy game last night, so that impacted some of the ball security issues. Kelsey fumbles on, inside the 10. There's making too many mistakes, and Mahomes is not good enough at this point to overcome those mistakes because he can't run the ball he is like, people have to catch the passes. And so this is a concern for me with the Chiefs. And I think it's really good. Their defense is playing so well, and their run game really came out to show last night. So they're still just one piece away from being, Super Bowl champions again, and they can figure it out, but definitely cause for concern in Kansas City.
Yeah, and like if you start to think of, all right, who's got an arrow up and will get a lot better by playoff time, outside of Rashee Rice, I don't know who the next boom is. Like, I think I've seen enough of Tony, and Sky Moore to definitively tell you they're not going to be very good receivers come playoff time. And I think that's the real concerning thing. They have to almost like manufacture offense. It doesn't come easy anymore. Let's talk about like specifically second half. 3 straight games now, Clark, shutout in the second half. They are averaging 5.3 points per game in the second halves of football. That's literally the dead last mark. Even the Jets and Giants score more points in the second half. What do you attribute that to? Is it just pure variance and luck, or is there something else there?
There could be something there, but if there is something there, I don't know what it is. So for me, it's coincidence, it's variance, it's whatever. But that doesn't mean that there isn't something there. I just haven't identified it.
All right. How about the Chiefs defense, though? Like, I got to say, this is a very good defense. Like, not just pretty good, like very, very good. They not only do a good job of taking away A.J. Brown, and if not for a Devontae Smith one catch tight window reception, they probably lock down the whole defense. They dominate the line of scrimmage. Like, I haven't seen Jalen Hurts under that much pressure ever in all his games. Are you definitively with me that this Chiefs defense is legit? Like, you got to start talking about them as a top 5 defense.
Yeah. I don't know about top 5, but they're a very good defense. They played one of their best games last night of the year, and that's what you want to see is right things building, things getting better as the season goes on.
I
also think that the Eagles offense just hasn't really faced that many tough challenges. Like over the last 2 years, they faced a lot of bad defenses, and their offensive line is really, really good. But despite the good offensive line, the Chiefs were getting in the backfield consistently. I think I come out with more concern about the Eagles offense than I about necessarily praising the Chiefs defense, although the Chiefs defense was really good. The Eagles offense was like, let's throw wide receiver screen after wide receiver screen. Hurts was not seeing things in rhythm. He wasn't making things happen. And I feel like when their run game gets stuffed, they don't have the ability to just be like, okay, we're just going to pass it and we're going to be successful. It like disrupts their entire offense. And so I came out of the game with concern for both teams. Honestly, I actually placed a bet on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl this morning because it's those three at the top of the pyramid, and both of those teams looked very vulnerable last night. So I think the 49ers should be deemed Super Bowl favorites at this point.
Well, I also think like not having Dallas Goedert takes away a real big passing option. Like Kevin Cole has them as 6-4 when eliminating like high variance plays. So the Eagles being 9-1 is probably fortunate by a lot of metrics. You think San Fran is the better team, or at least matches up really well against the Eagles come playoff time?
Yeah, definitely. I think the 49ers defense will be able to do what the Chiefs did last night. And the difference is that the 49ers offense is really working. And so the Chiefs offense was pretty dysfunctional. And even then they had a chance to win. I think the 49ers neutral field, I would definitely take the 49ers. If they have to play in Philly, it does get tough because that's a tough environment. But I think the 49ers are, if they stay healthy, are good enough to win that game.
All right, Beat Gamer says keep sleeping on the Ravens. The Chiefs are vulnerable this year. Beat Gamer, we're going to address this specifically in a segment we're going to call Buy or Sell after our film review. But Clark, we often do like a draft style. What film do you want to cover? And I'm not going to lie, when you said you wanted to cover the Giants and Commanders, you started giving me PTSD. I got Tommy DeVito'd out of the Circa Survivor contest. Why don't you tell me why I am no longer in that contest?
I'm sorry, George, and you're not going to like my answer. So I like to talk about this game because I think the value we provide as people that watch every game is to talk about games that maybe not necessarily everybody watched. And I doubt a lot of people watched this game that weren't specifically interested.
Yeah.
What I saw was the Commanders were the better team. To me, there's no question of that. And that's why I don't think you're going to like my answer. The Giants offense, they could not run the ball. DeVito took 1 million sacks. It wasn't, and these weren't the types of sacks where, sometimes quarterbacks are scrambling out of the pocket and they kind of run out of bounds, take a loss and it's a sack, or, quarterback is scrambling and getting back up towards the line of scrimmage and the defensive end chases him down and gets a leg tackle. These were like bad sacks where there was no chance of completing a pass on the play. And so his passing numbers are a little bit skewed by that because a lot of those should have been incompletions, and that would have brought his numbers down. To the extent that they did complete passes, it was blown coverages. It was, a lot of out of structure plays. It wasn't a rhythmic offense. They weren't beating the Washington defense, and the Washington pass defense sucks. That's the only reason that DeVito did what he did, was because the Commanders can't cover anybody. I mean, we've seen quarterback after quarterback after quarterback throw for a bunch of yards against this Commanders defense. And, one of my favorite bets of the week was DeVito's passing over, because it was 160 yards, and everybody's beaten that except for Sam Howell in week 1, or not Sam Howell, Josh Dobbs in week 1.
Yeah.
And so without Chase Young, without Montez Sweat, the Giants still took like 9 or 10 sacks. So this was not a good performance by the Giants offense. This is not a resurrection of the season for the Giants. And you could say, well, the offensive line is healthy. Like Andrew Thomas is back. They got some guys back up front, but it wasn't a good offensive line performance. Like I said, a bunch of sacks, could not run the ball. The rushing statistics are skewed because they had 2 30-plus yard runs in the fourth quarter. Before that, they couldn't run the ball at all. There was one point like late in the game where the leading rusher was Wan'Dale Robinson with 1 carry for 2 yards. So this was a complete aberration of an outcome that wasn't justified. Washington had 6 turnovers, and these weren't, again, the types of turnovers that are predictive. It was like punt returner fumbles the ball, Sam Howell taking a deep shot that could have, kind of a 50-50 ball, defender comes up with it. These types of plays where it's just, you put these teams back on the same field, and Washington is going to be heavy favorites again because they were the better team. I do have some concerns about the Washington offense. They're a little bit inconsistent. They missed Antonio Gibson. There was a key pass that Brian Robinson dropped that I think Antonio Gibson, catches for the first down. Yeah. And then just Sam Howell's inconsistency kind of popped back up here. I think people got a little carried away. but what they're doing structurally is better than what they were doing earlier in the season. So I don't think this is I guess the Washington Commanders offense just isn't good after all. I think it was just a one-game aberration, and I'm not taking too much out of it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, outside of the, losing the turnover battle 6-0, which is just, it's unheard of. Like, in 500 game sample size, you don't lose turnover battle 6-0, especially with like 3 of them coming on fumbles. I thought Jack Del Rio had a poor early strategy defensively. Like, when the O-line's so decimated, you can probably generate a 4-man pass rush and drop back 7, but he was sending the blitz. And so it was either sack DeVito or give up a huge chunk because the defenders could not cover everybody. And what happened was once the pass rusher missed, DeVito completed some big plays. And like, they had gains of 40, 24, 26, 21, 16, 36. These are chunk plays. The other thing that I was left taken away from this game is Bobby Okereke is such a good guy at punching out the ball. He did it twice. One time he was fully engaged with an O-lineman and with his one free hand just punched it out. And I'm just like, oh, come on now. Like, really, is this the type of crap that I got to deal with? And like, all that to be said was Washington still had a chance to win the game in the last drive. And it's like, it's unfortunate, but I guess that's what happens. Sometimes
Yeah.
you get all the wrong end of variance in a game.
And you sack a quarterback 9 times and you can't get him to drop the ball once. Like, you gotta find a way to turn those sacks into fumbles.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Any other thoughts on that game before we move on to Packers and Chargers?
Now we can move on to a much better game.
All right. I'm sour. I had a bet on the over in this game, and for the second straight week, a Green Bay lack of extra point kick has cost me. More importantly, like, this game had 800 yards of total offense and 50% third down conversions. There's zero reason why this game didn't go over, but I actually didn't want to dig in and complain. I actually wanted to praise some things that I've seen with the Packers that I liked. I think it's so clearly evident that Aaron Jones is such a dynamic piece to the offense, because even on the Jaden Reed touchdown reverse, it was a fake handoff to Aaron Jones that sucked all the attention and allowed Jaden Reed to get the ball on the edge for a reverse for the touchdown. I think Jordan Love still misses a lot of like throws, and he doesn't know the difference between a fastball and like putting it in there with air. Everything is a fastball for him still. Like, he had Luke Musgrave down the sideline wide open, but he throws a fastball instead of with touch. And because of that, he overthrows him in that spot. But there's stuff that I like about Jordan Love. I think his pocket presence is underrated. They've given up the 8th fewest sacks. I saw a really good touchdown to Dobbs where he saw there was a heavy blitz, but he saw that Dobbs cooked his coverage immediately. Back shoulder, bang, get it out of his hands, like in less than a second and a half, and it ended up being a touchdown. I thought Matt LaFleur did a crappy job in certain spots. Like, there's a 4th and 1, Clark, and they go for play action and they dump it off into the flat. That's 2 yards short of the sticks. Clark, by definition, play action is meant to suck the defense in, and usually it should be accompanied by a deep shot, right? You've created lanes and alleys deeper down the field that wouldn't have existed without the play action theoretically. So to call play action, have the defense now closer to the line of scrimmage, and then throwing it short of the sticks, to me is just it's a very peculiar play call. You've almost invited more defenders to the sticks to make the tackle. And that was one takeaway that I was surprised by Matt LaFleur's call. Some observations from the Chargers. Man, Austin Eckler feels like he's running in slow motion. He is not fully recovered from that high ankle sprain. He could have blown a touchdown away, and he ended up getting caught just because he doesn't have the same juice. I don't want to relive the Keenan Allen drops and Donald Parham drops and everything like that, but the Chargers don't have enough guys that can win in the secondary right now. And I think that's problematic for them. That being said, there's no reason this game didn't go over. I wanted your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I mean, Keenan Allen's drops were, I think, sun. Like he's staring into the sun, trying to catch the ball on the goal line twice and drops it. So goes over if he catches those. But I was really impressed with both quarterbacks in this game. It was Jordan Love's best career game, and that comes off of last week when I was talking about how he just played his best career game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It was easy conditions. He's at home against a really bad Chargers defense, but he did it last week on the road in Pittsburgh. So this is building those types of performances that you want to see from a guy that you want to have starting next year. And my favorite play of his was actually, it was somewhat early in the game, and there was a blitz. And it was either a design screen or a hot route. I couldn't remember the exact play design, but basically the blitz came in and he looked at what he thought was going to be either the running back turning around for the screen or the receiver on the hot route. And it wasn't there. The player had not turned around. And he immediately threw the ball at the feet of the receiver to just end the play. And that is what I want to see from Jordan Love, is we know that in a clean pocket, he can make those downfield throws. Like, he's not the best at it, but he can do it. And that's been a big part of his game this year. But what hasn't been a big part is how does he handle pressure? He hasn't had to do that very often. And I was really encouraged by a play like that should have been a negative play based on how the defense played it, but he turned it into a neutral play. I mean, obviously 0 yards is a negative play for the offense, but better than it could have been. And so that's kind of what I was excited about. If you're a Packers fan, he's got an opportunity to really keep this going down the stretch. And if he does, then I think he's definitely a guy that you can be happy starting next year. So he's not there yet. He needs more performances than just 2, but he's on the right track. And that's what I'm looking forward to end the season.
Yeah, like in the beginning, it was a lot of flashes mixed in with a lot of mistakes, backbreaking mistakes. So he's eliminated the negatives now. And now it's still a lot of flashes. And if he can just get slightly more consistency, he might end up being a good one. And this is the reason we've been throwing the caveat all year, Clark, of let's just see with a healthy offense what this looks like. And for 2 weeks, at least, we saw a healthy version of this offense, and it looked pretty good. Let's get a couple questions here, Clark, before we move on to buy or sell. Nathan asks, what are your thoughts on Myles Garrett for MVP? I took a flyer at 150 to 1. He's down to 60 to 1. Does he have a chance, or have I just donated my hard-earned money to the bank? Listen, they are 7-3, and he is he single-handedly won them that Indianapolis game. He is a huge I know we'll never give a non-quarterback an MVP again, but my God, he's got to be the one responsible for their 7-3 success, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is defense is a team effort, and he's part of a very good overall. He's the best player on a very good overall defense, but it's just hard to attribute. 13 sacks is a lot of sacks, and maybe he finishes with 18, 19. That's a lot of sacks, but that's still 18, 19 negative plays, right? And you're talking about when you're comparing to a quarterback that makes 20, 30 plays a game. It's really hard to and granted, pressures impact the game. There's so many other ways. Underrated ways that a defensive player impacts the game, but those don't typically influence MVP voters, and so that's my issue with the long shot. But 150 to 1, like why not have some fun, right?
Clark, there's a dynamic in football of and we've seen it, great quarterbacks that just don't win. And I'm not talking about Dan Marino, but I'm talking like Phillip Rivers. It became Tony Romo, guys who were really good, and inevitably it's like for whatever reason they were in an era with better quarterbacks and never surrounded with the right team. Cottage says Herbert might be on track for a Romo career if the San Diego team keeps San Diegoing with a bad D. Are you optimistic that Herbert's ever going to win anything, or is this organization just they need all new weapons? This is not a good enough supporting cast, and suddenly their defense is very old, and Eckler's probably, getting to the downslope of his career, and you're wondering, how did you waste Herbert's whole rookie contract?
Yeah, I mean, it's not good for the Chargers, but things change. Like we tend to project the current circumstances into the future, and I just don't think that's fair. Like when this year ends, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert will both have no championships, and both of them have the opportunity to get one in their career. It's going to be really, really tough for either one of them, honestly, but they both have the talent to get there. And I think circumstances can change, coaching can change, defense can change, weapons can change. So it's a long career. I'm not calling him the next Tony Romo just yet. I want to give him some time.
All right, let's do some buying or selling. I love this idea, and if we can pull up the Pinnacle odds, Jason, on some markets here, I want to start off with if Jason, if you can pull up the AFC East odds on Pinnacle, please, just so we can take a glance at them. Clark, Miami is minus 648 to win the East. Buffalo is plus 399. There's only 1.5 games separating these teams. And Buffalo still has one more game with Miami. And if they win, they close that gap to half a game with the tiebreaker. Are you buying or selling Miami being this large a favorite?
I'm selling Miami being that large of a favorite. They definitely should be favorites. The Bills' schedule is really tough, but I just haven't seen the pop from the Dolphins' offense in the last 3 or 4 games that we saw earlier in the year. They've struggled against the best competition, and they've still got a couple tough games left on their schedule. So I'm not putting the confidence in this Dolphins team. It's also very fragile to injury. I also haven't yet seen their defense take that next step. Like we keep talking about, well, they got the pieces, they got the coach, like the defense could be top 5, top 10. I think that's a lot to kind of put on. That's a big number to put on a team that is very vulnerable to a drop off late in the year. So selling that price, yeah.
All right, let's go to the AFC South if we can, Jason. On Pinnacle, we got the Jaguars and the Texans. Jaguars are minus 265 to win the division. Texans are plus 235. It's only a 1-game lead. The Houston Texans are playing at home this week against the Jags, and they have the tiebreaker. Are you buying or selling Jacksonville being this large a favorite?
I think if you like Jacksonville to win the division, just take them on the money line this week. I think at Houston, right? I mean, if they win this week, they'll have a 2-game lead and the tiebreaker, right? They basically lock up the division. So you can almost kind of get that division winner price for a much smaller number. Granted, you don't have the other ways where even if they lose to Houston, they can still win the division.
Of course.
But I just think when you can kind of minimize the uncertainty and variance and really play an angle. If you like the Jags to win this division at that price, then you probably like them on the money line this week against Houston. I would just play that.
All right, let's get a little spicy and look at Super Bowl odds on Pinnacle. Detroit right now, Jason, if you can pull it up, is a higher probability of winning the Super Bowl than the Cowboys, plus 1002 to plus 1027. Obviously, with Detroit, you've got a division, so there's a home game, and then there's the possibility of being a 1 seed. But, Dallas is probably going to be the top wild card and get to beat up on whoever wins the NFC South. So it's not like Dallas has the toughest first playoff game. And then inevitably, they're both going to have to play some combo of Philly and San Fran. Are you buying that Detroit's high-end outcome is higher than Dallas's?
I think it's close, but yeah, I would lean Detroit just because of the easier road. Like you said, there are things happen, right? Crazy shit happens, and so we can sit here and be like, well, both of them are going to have to beat combination of Philly and San Fran. Maybe not. Like we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. And just the fact that the Lions could also have a shot at the 1 seed, the Eagles' win last night was bad for both the Lions and the Cowboys, but I think it was worse for the Cowboys because the Cowboys going in as a 5 seed. I think is much worse than the Lions going in as a 2 or 3 seed. And I think with the Eagles' upcoming games and the Lions' upcoming schedule, there's still a chance the Lions can get that 1 seed. So I don't think Dallas or Detroit has much of a, I don't think they'd be close to pick them against the Niners or the Eagles. But I think the Lions are going to be much more likely to be getting the bye, getting home field, playing in a dome where Jared Goff plays his best football. And I don't think the gap between the teams is that big. So I'd give me the Lions on those 2 prices.
Okay, one more for the Super Bowl price. And I swear, Eric, you either have seen my notes or you and I share the same brain. But on Pinnacle right now, Jason, Super Bowl odds, Kansas City has a higher probability, a lot higher, of winning the Super Bowl than the Baltimore Ravens. Are you buying or selling that the Chiefs should have a much better chance of winning the Super Bowl than the Ravens?
Yeah, I'm buying that. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and the Ravens have Lamar Jackson, and I think Lamar Jackson's been playing good football this year. Like he's not bad, but Mahomes is next level, especially when it comes to playoff time and the way the defense is playing. I mean, there's always a chance Travis Kelce gets hurt. We saw him kind of go in and out last night, and that really sucked. But Mark Andrews is already hurt, and the Ravens offense really struggled without Mark Andrews. So, and Lamar Jackson seems to get banged up every game. Like, he's taking a lot of hits, and I don't know if there's anything that could be re-injured or triggered or whatever. But I think the Ravens are more fragile than people think. That like projecting the way they've been playing into the future, I think is showing too much certainty. So yeah, Chiefs should be favored over the Ravens.
And Dolphins should be favored over both those teams, Clark. Let's go on to MVP. Jalen Hurts is currently the betting favorite to win the MVP over Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Tua Tagovailoa. Are you buying or selling Jalen Hurts should be the favorite in the MVP market, and is he going to get there?
No, I don't think so. I have a hard time with MVP markets because unlike things that you can quantify, right, like results, it relies on the views of the voters, and that's an uncertainty that I don't know how to build into a model, and so I don't even try to price MVP prices. It's very sentiment narrative driven, not really my forte. But I don't think Hurts has been playing meaningfully better than any other quarterback in the league. I think there are so many candidates that it's going to come down to who finishes strong.
Yeah.
The one on the list that you didn't mention that I think is kind of interesting is Brock Purdy. I think he's at 15-1. I'm not sure what the Pinnacle price is, but his numbers are really, really good. And we know, like, analytics minded people understand that so much of his numbers result from the scheme that he's in and the players around him. But it doesn't really matter, right? Because people are in the circumstances they're in. Like, no one is saying, well, we're going to treat Mahomes like MVS catches that ball. We're going to treat Mahomes like, Kelce doesn't fumble that ball. They are bound by the results that they encounter. And I think, if the 49ers finish strong and get the 1 seed in the NFC over the Eagles, I think Purdy would be, either favorites or co-favorites to win the MVP. I'm still also not ready to give up on a quarterback winning this. I think there's just too many options for players to really tear it up down the stretch. If the Bills make the playoffs, Josh Allen is live. If the Ravens get the 1 seed, Lamar Jackson is live. If the Chiefs get it, Patrick Mahomes is live. And I don't really think that Hurts has done anything meaningfully better. I think it's just, well, they're 9-1, so let's give their QB the top spot.
It's also, there's recency bias, right? Hurts gets injured for like the last 3 games of last year, and he's gone from everybody's thoughts. 2 years ago, Tom Brady has 1 dud on Sunday Night Football against the Saints, and it became Rodgers' award overnight. Clark, I actually have to ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your background picture on your display? Like on mine, it's a nice like steak restaurant that I really like the ambiance of. What is your background picture? I promise. All right, so it's your wife and your
my
cat?
wife and my cat.
All right. You know what Jalen Hurts' background picture is on his phone?
What?
It's a picture of him walking off sad, confetti all around him when they lost in the Super Bowl. I'm going to tell you something. I love Jalen Hurts' mentality. This is a guy who's like 24-2 as a starter. He is pissed off, and that doesn't include his playoff record. He is pissed off, and I like his mentality. I don't know if he's going to win MVP, but man, that's my quarterback. That's the guy I want as my leader, that it burns him so bad he reminds himself every day of that failure. Last one. Yeah.
I just want to comment, like, I agree with you that I had a kind of semi-facetious tweet a while ago about how the it factor. Hurts has whatever that it factor is. Like, it's a drive, a competitiveness, a focus, like he has all of those elements that really make someone reach their potential as a person and as a player. And so yeah, I totally agree with that on Hurts.
I almost think that the burning desire not to lose more than winning is like the key embodiment. Hating losing more than you love winning will drive you further in life. One more, Clark. The Houston Texans currently have better odds to make the playoffs over the Buffalo Bills. They're chalk to make the playoffs in some books. The Bills are chalk to miss the playoffs. Are you buying or selling that the Houston Texans are more likely to make the playoffs than the Buffalo Bills?
I'm sadly, because the Bills were my Super Bowl pick before the season, I'm sadly buying it. I think the Texans' schedule is light enough, and the Bills' schedule is tough enough that the margin for error is just so small. Like, I think the Bills are a much better team, but it's a game with a lot of variance, and a lot of these close games, like, they have to go on the road and beat Philly next week probably. That's not easy.
Yeah.
Whereas the Texans, really, if they beat the Jags at home next week, I think the path is open for them to take a playoff spot. So buying the Texans with a tear in my eye.
Let's talk about a few of the market games, and then we'll get into the 3 Thursday night football games and the Friday night football game. Just some interesting movement. The Jacksonville-Houston game was a pick. We've seen Jacksonville money now. They're 1.5, 2, depending on the book. Pinnacle has them 107 right now. We always get Houston money on game day. There are some influential bettors that really do like this Texans team, and we always see a move towards the Texans. Are you surprised that Jacksonville has jumped out to being favorites, and do you think it goes up or down?
No, I'm not surprised, and I think it's right. I think Jags as small favorites makes sense in the spot, but it could come back down to pick 'em. It could go up to -2. I don't really see much movement outside of that. This is a tight game. Trevor Lawrence has a longer track record of being a good quarterback. Remember last week I talked about, the missing piece in this offense is Calvin Ridley. They worked to get Calvin Ridley involved. I don't know why it took them 11 weeks to get there, but they got Calvin Ridley involved and it paid massive dividends against the Titans. So I think this is a Jags offense moving in the right direction. Trevor Lawrence was on the injury report, but he played fine. He was scrambling, even had a rushing touchdown. So I understand why the Jags, with the way that their defense is playing, they're getting healthy, the way Trevor Lawrence is playing, are favorites. But, CJ Stroud is the real deal. Like he's week after week proving his doubters wrong. Even the interceptions this week, I mean, one of them was bad, but one of them was a tip pass. I think this is it's a very tight game, and I think it's going to be one that a lot of bettors are going to be interested in at the price. So I think we might see a little bit of a tug of war in the price, but I think it settles where it is now.
All right. Howdy brings up something that I want to talk about quickly. Part of the advantage of having a quarterback on a rookie contract is being able to build around him. And then there's the push and pull of who do you pay, and what advantage do you have with a guy on a rookie contract. Howdy says if you're starting a franchise in 2024, basically all players back in the pot, and you have to absorb the contract with the player. Where do you rank CJ Stroud? So Arjun Menon says Mahomes is 1 because he's the greatest, and then Stroud's number 2 because of his contract. Do you dispute that, or would you rather still some of the other franchise guys on full deals, or Stroud as he's playing now on a rookie contract?
I don't think I dispute it. I think that's right. Josh Allen would be the name that comes to mind for me as someone that I might consider even having to pay the contract. But honestly, with him playing at CJ Stroud playing at the level that he is as a rookie, right? Yeah. It's not like a guy who's on the 3rd year of his rookie contract and you're going to get, another year or whatever. This is like everything is in front of him. So yeah, Arjun Menon is, as always, right on the money.
Yeah. I'm inclined to side with that. And like, who would be the worst? Probably Russell Wilson. I think I'd rather have Deshaun Watson. I think I'd rather have Watson than Wilson because, I still believe that Watson has something left in the tank. I believe Wilson has nothing left in the tank. He's just a shell of himself, and everything's a check down now and safe. All right, I got a question for Eric that wants answered because Eric, I'm assuming you're in Circa and the Thanksgiving teams are out of play and it's a separate week because I was going to debate between New England, Tennessee, and Minnesota myself. If you had to pick a team for Survivor and these were your 3 options, who would you end up going with, Clark?
That's tough. I'd probably go Patriots out of those 3.
Me too. That was the plan. The plan was Patriots. There's no future value on this spot. I don't like what I've seen from Will Levis lately in Tennessee, and I can't trust it fully. If Tannehill was playing, I'd probably consider Tennessee. And I want no parts of fading Chicago. I actually think they're a lot better the last month and a half than people have realized. Let's move on to one other game that I want to talk about market movement before we preview. Baltimore and the Chargers. The line opened 4, but we saw a move this morning to the Chargers, and I know a couple of people who are on the Chargers. Are you surprised it's moving that way? Is some of this is Lamar Jackson uncertainty, or do you see a bounce back for Baltimore here? Because I don't think it gets to the 3, but maybe it does.
I'm a little surprised. I expected it. I mean, it was kind of moving slowly up, I think, since open, and that made sense to me. The Ravens are a far superior team to the Chargers, but all I can think of is playing at home with a quarterback like Herbert, getting over a field goal. Like it's, I understand why there would be buyback on the home dog, but the Ravens are just playing lights out better football than the Chargers. So I definitely surprised by the bet on the Chargers.
Yeah, if it gets to 3 at any point at any book, I am very much going to put some money into play there. Clark, let's go to Thursday night football. Green Bay and Detroit. Line is currently sitting at 7.5. We saw some money come in on the over. There's some banged up players. We still don't know if Jair Alexander or Rudy Ford is going to play. Devondre Campbell, they lost him during the last game. Aaron Jones obviously being the big one offensively, and I'd feel a lot better about Green Bay in this position if Aaron Jones was playing, because the EPA per play with him on and off the field are drastic. What are your thoughts on this game? I've heard some people say that 7.5 feels a touch heavy. Do you share that sentiment?
I think Aaron Jones does matter. It's the rare circumstance where a running back matters. And short week after an injury that knocked him out of the game, he never returned, is a tough proposition. So that matters. The Lions offense absolutely destroyed the Packers in their first matchup, and the Packers defense has done nothing since then to make me think they figure stuff out. I mean, I don't know what Joe Barry's doing, but this defense sucks.
They've gotten worse. Like they can't stop the run anymore. Even the Steelers ran right through them.
Yeah. So like for me, it's hard to imagine how the Lions at home don't capitalize. The Bears defense is very underrated. So Goff struggling against the Bears. I'm not putting too much stock into that. This should be a bounce back spot for the Lions offense. And the question is, can the Packers offense keep up? I think that's really where the key handicap is in this game. And I think if you like the Packers offense, even without Aaron Jones, then I think you can play the 7.5. I also think you can just play the over, even at the current number. But sorry.
I prefer the over if you think the Packers are going to move the ball.
Yeah, I bet the over at open. It opened 45.5, which was just way too low. Yeah. And I think it's kind of getting closer to the right number. I think 48 is the right number. I think you probably still get like a 47 out there, maybe 46.5.
46.5 at Pinnacle minus 118 right now. So there's some numbers there. It's effectively a 47. They let you ladder what number you can get. So there are some 47s out there.
I would prefer to lower the juice and take the 47.
You can get 111, 47 at Pinnacle right now. So there are definitely some options there.
I think that's what I would lean with on this one. If Aaron Jones plays, definitely over. But I don't really like betting against this Lions team when everything is favorable, even as big favorites, because when things are clicking on offense, when Ben Johnson has put together that game plan, like it really feels inevitable. Like their first downs feel inevitable, their explosive plays feel inevitable, and I feel like we could be 15 minutes into this game and just be like, okay, so the Packers are never going to stop the Lions. So how are we going to cover the 7.5 if Jordan Love doesn't play a perfect game? And that's just not a situation I want to find myself in.
No, I'm very interested in a Detroit teaser as well. I know Joey likes to tease people. He teases me. Appreciate him being in the comments. I do like a Detroit leg of a teaser. We're gonna talk cottage about the Jets. We'll get to the Jets Miami line, but let's go to Commanders and Cowboys. Like it's 11, but Pinnacle's got it 11 even right now, and this line probably is going to come down, is my guesstimation of everything. Cowboys, other than Jaron Kearse, probably have a clean bill of health. Man, we talked about, past games and people can pass on Washington. Dak has looked fantastic as of lately. And I expect him to have some success. How do you identify this game? What are the matchups you're looking for?
I think the matchup that determines the handicap here is whether or not you think Sam Howell and the offense can score in this Cowboys defense, or whether they'll create too many negative plays. Because, like you said, the Cowboys offense should be able to move the ball against this Commanders defense. They're going to put up points. At a number above 10, I'm not looking to bet on a heavy favorite, especially where the prime part of the handicap is their passing offense, because you see teams. I mean, the Cowboys aren't typically one of those teams that takes their foot off the gas, but you do see teams skew run heavy in the second half with a big lead. So the back door will be wide open for the Commanders. This actually reminds me a lot of last year's Giants-Cowboys game where the Cowboys dominated the game. I actually had a bet on the Cowboys -9.5, I think it was, and they got backdoored by a last-second field goal to lose by 8 or something. Yeah. Absurd. And I think we're kind of in a similar situation. Like the Commanders aren't going to give up. They're going to go down swinging. So even if the Commanders make mistakes early, I think they're just going to keep firing. And that's definitely a big underdog price that I think you could be more comfortable with than the big favorite price. So it makes sense that it's coming down a little bit. But I think you'll see buyback at 10 either way on the Cowboys.
All right. This game had a little bit of debate between Suma and I in our group chat for the Monday show before we ever hit the air on Monday. San Fran at Seattle. Currently, it's 7-101 at Pinnacle. A lot of books are showing a juiced 6.5. The line opened at 7, so we saw some Seattle buy-in. And I guess the question marks for Seattle are Geno Smith, who Pete Carroll insists is gonna a good chance of him playing. We might not see him practice till Wednesday, though, so people might be queasy on taking a position on Seattle early. San Fran lost Hufanga for the year, and Aaron Banks didn't practice, and neither did their other guard, Spencer Burford. So they're not without their own injuries. Were you surprised by the initial line, and do you think it was somewhat baking in an in-between that if Locke is going to end up playing, it's going to go north of the 7, and if Geno ends up confirmed, it's probably going to end up south of the 7?
Yeah, I think that's right. There's no way this price reflects Locke. I think this price could reflect Geno, honestly. I mean, 6.5, 7 with Geno, I think makes sense. The 49ers have been absolutely dominant. But if it's Locke, it's going much higher. So to me, the market is saying that Geno's playing, and there's some confidence level in that, especially considering he finished the game, right? I mean, when players go back in the game, it's typically a good sign, even though things swell up and stuff. But for me, I can't touch this with the uncertainty. I'm kind of agreeing with the split line at expensive 6.5, cheap 7.
I think it'll end up closing 6 once Geno's confirmed. My numbers tell me I'm supposed to bet it at 6 and 6.5 and 7 for Seattle. I'm supposed to bet them. I just can't get to this number. I give Seattle a significant home field advantage. It might be one of the biggest in the NFL. All that being said, the 49ers have a way of, really being able to dominate teams and assert their dominance. So I don't know that I'm going to want to bang the table and bet Seattle. But like even if it's Drew Lock and I get 10, I might just have to plug my nose and say Seattle's got a lot of good pieces. And if they can just eliminate, the backbreaking mistakes, I might end up on the Seattle side. Let's talk Miami Jets. Jets were Miami was 7.5, 8. We get the news that Zach Wilson is the third string quarterback and Tim Boyle comes in and the line rockets to 9.5, and it's now sitting at 10 everywhere. We might probably see it come back down from 10 to 9.5. Cottage says, why did the Jets spread move so much? I bet plus 9.5, thinking the move was over. I talked with Cleve and Suma, and I said, I don't get the line. I can't make it that. But Cleve said, you know what? Maybe it's a case of they were going to get pounded with teasers. Like who and their mother wouldn't want a Miami teaser? And moving it above the 9.5 mark prevents people from getting under the field goal without taking a 7-point teaser out. I'm curious on what you make of the whole line, the jump up from Zach Wilson to Tim Boyle, and where you think it ultimately goes.
I think you'd have to ask a bookmaker, but I don't think that they would move to 10 from 9.5 to avoid teaser liability for 2 reasons. One is, 7-point teasers are so expensive, -140 at least, that I don't think that they're really sweating too many of those. And 2, I think the handle on sides is just so much bigger than teasers, especially at the big market making books. So I think the move to 10 is real. I think it reflects a belief that Tim Boyle sucks as a quarterback, and that even though Zach Wilson has struggled this year, he has mobility, he has arm strength, he looks downfield while he's scrambling. Like he's been wildly inaccurate and, all that kind of stuff. But their offense hasn't been as bad as people think it has been. Yeah. If you take away things like holding penalties, that have just absolutely killed so many positive plays and then like backbreaking mistakes that Zach Wilson has made. So I think what they're projecting with Tim Boyle is like a less mobile version of Zach Wilson.
Right. Which when Mekhi Becton has a high ankle sprain, now you're losing another O lineman to an already bad O line. It could get ugly for the Jets offense.
And the Dolphins can score, but honestly, I think the 10 is too much, even despite all of what I just said. Because yes, Tim Boyle probably lacks as much mobility as Wilson. I also think that he might get the ball out quicker. And that was what we saw last year when Mike White took over, was a quarterback that's willing to get the ball out quickly. And that can really, really have an impact on both the bad offensive line play and, the receivers who, Garrett Wilson gets open. It's just needs someone who can just throw the ball on time. And Tim Boyle's cameo appearance even at best, but he did get the ball out somewhat quick on some of those plays, especially early on in his game. So I think if they game plan for a quick passing game, take some of the pressure, maybe not just run pass every time. If they do that, then the Dolphins are going to get enough possessions to eventually cover this. But the Jets defense is just so good that asking the Dolphins to cover 10 against that defense is asking a lot. And I don't have the same faith in Tua that you have. So the 10 is a little high for me.
I wrote Tua needs to avoid the big mistake, and it feels like Tua is good for one big mistake a game.
I think it's good for like 3 or 4.
Whoa! Let's not get carried away here. I will say something, Clark. Since Jalen Ramsey's come back, he's been targeted 16 times in 3 games. He's allowed 4 catches for 40 yards. He has 3 interceptions, a 0 passer rating. When reaching him. But this is why I think the Jets offense is going to have some major problems. Dolphins are top 7 in pressure percentage in the NFL, and we send the blitz the 8th least amount of times. Right now, Vic Fangio has Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer. He's got a good D-line. And they can generate a really good 4-man pressure, 4-man pass rush. And once you drop 7 and Ramsey's back there as a hawk now and Javon Holland is, the Jets probably going to need to run the ball a lot and try to limit how much they throw. So I'm looking at like Breece Hall rush attempts over, even if he's not successful. I think they're going to be insistent on keep giving him carries just to avoid Tim Boyle having to drop back with that O-line against this pass rush and having no passing lane. So I'm very interested in the game. I think as long as Tua doesn't make the mistakes, I shouldn't be feeling too uncomfortable. I got my eyes on the 1 or 2 seed, Clark. I'm optimistic here, so hopefully this is a win. Clark, any big Thanksgiving plans for us Canadians? Thanksgiving is American Thanksgiving is football. We get to watch it, but do you have any big plans? What do you usually do on Thanksgiving?
I don't have a typical, so I'm originally from England, so Thanksgiving is not part of my family's like history.
Got it.
This year we're going into the mountains to go snowboarding, and pretty excited about that.
That's wild. Are you going to be able to watch any of the games or
No, I'll be on the mountain on Thursday. So
awesome, man. Well, congratulations. Enjoy the time off and enjoy going through the mountains. We'll be back again tomorrow, 2:00. Forward Progress, Pizzola, Eric Eager, Suma, and Hitman giving you their best bets and breaking down games from a betting perspective. Drop us a like before you bounce. Clark and I put in some work today. That's it for me. Thanks to SharpClarke. Thanks to producer Jason. And thanks to you, the audience, who engaged with us all day. And I really appreciate it. And good luck, Eric, in your Survivor with whoever you go with. That's it for me. Until next time.